It's eclipse season. Hi everyone, it's Emily with Emily T Astrology, and I am your host for Hermes Speaks. This is your weekly astro check-in where we explore the current quality of time, and normally we bring in some added mercurial insight through the written word and bibliomancy. This week, however, I gotta be honest with you, this is my second go round with recording this week's episode. I spent a good 90 minutes making a recording that had some bibliomancy, that had horoscopes for every sign, and wouldn't you know it, that recording was lost to the gods of technology. So I took that as a sign that I needed to pivot and approach this week's episode a little differently. So this week we will be hearing Hermes speak. We will be receiving those mercurial messages, not through the written word, but instead through memory and synchronicity. So welcome everybody. We are going to look at the upcoming solar eclipse in the sign of Aquarius that is coming through on February 17th. I'll explore this eclipse from a very broad perspective. We'll pull up the chart, we'll take a look at the particulars. I'll also be inviting you to take a trip down memory lane as I offer some previous windows of time in which we had eclipses across the Aquarius and Leo axis. And I will also be bringing up the chart of the Great American eclipse. Some of you, I'm sure, will remember it. It took place in the sign of Leo in August of 2017, one of those earlier periods of time when we had eclipses across this axis, Leo Aquarius. And I had a little intuitive nudge as I was researching this episode that I wanted to take a look at that chart. And when I did, I was surprised to see some similarities between the Great American Eclipse chart and our upcoming solar eclipse in Aquarius chart. I decided I wanted to share them. I wanted to talk about them. These are the moments when I feel so in love with astrology, when you pull up a chart and something jumps out at you, like it's black and white and suddenly it's in color. All of a sudden, something comes alive. And it's these moments when you are an enthusiast of astrology, when you have these delightful moments coming into color. These are the moments that I just delight in. That's why I'm here every week. I'm here every week because I hope to help inspire in even one of you that sense of delight, that sense of in-color excitement. It makes me feel there is beauty and order and meaning in the cosmos, that I am a part of that cosmos, that universe, and so therefore there is some beauty and order and meaning in my own life. That's what astrology offers for me on so many occasions, and what I hope that this exploration here today helps to offer for even one of you. So let's get into it. As I said, this eclipse is coming through on February 17th at 28 degrees of Aquarius. This is a new moon solar eclipse, and it is an eclipse in proximity to the North Lunar Node. Eclipses take place when we have a new moon or a full moon that is within about 15 degrees or less of one of the nodes. In this case, we have an out of sign eclipse because our solar eclipse is taking place at 28 degrees of Aquarius, and the North Lunar Node is in the early degrees of Pisces. The nodes move in reverse order, so it is backing up through those first degrees of Pisces and will enter Aquarius come late July or early August, depending on which measurement of the nodes you are using. So at the time of this eclipse on February 17th, it is an out of sign eclipse, but the degree of the new moon is close enough in proximity to the degree of the North Lunar Node for it to be a partial solar eclipse. Let's break down just these basic ideas. First, eclipses, because of their connection to the nodes, which many astrologers refer to the lunar nodes as the nodes of fate, or they refer to activation of the nodes as the hand of God is reaching out and touching your life. Eclipses are new moons and full moons in close enough proximity to those nodes of fate. Eclipses have a tendency to be powerful new or full moons that are periods of time that feel accelerated, that feel volatile, that feel perhaps fated or karmic. Astrologer Chris Brennan always says major new beginnings or endings. Eclipses in general, there are periods of shift, beginnings, endings. This eclipse in particular is a new moon solar eclipse. Well, new moons are typically seen as seeding points. We have a new moon every month, every 29 and a half days, and that starts a new lunar cycle. So new moons are initiatory. They are beginning something. And when we have a new moon solar eclipse, it is beginning or seeding point for the next month until the next new moon, the next 6 months until we have a full moon in the same sign, or with eclipses, in this case, it is the beginning of the next 2 years because it is the first eclipse along this axis, the Aquarius-Leo axis, the final of which in this series will be another solar eclipse in Aquarius in January of 2028. So this is a new seeding point for the next 2 years. And we can also look at it as a new seeding point for the next 9 years, because in about 9 years, the nodes will be back in this axis of signs. However, they will be flipped. So we will have the North Node in Leo and the South Node in Aquarius. And we can even look at this as the seeding point for the next 18 years, because that is when we will have the nodes returning to this axis of signs in their same orientation as they will be with the North Node in Aquarius and the South in Leo. So new moon, new beginning, new seeding point along the Aquarius-Leo axis for the next month, 6 months, 2 years, 9 years, 18 years. Okay, now what do we have to say about an eclipse near the North Node? Well, I am a Hellenistic astrologer, and the way that I view the nodes, broken down very simply, the North Node is a place of increase. It's a place of augmentation, of calling in, of hunger, and of manifestation, particularly in the material, 3D, human circumstance. Conversely, I look at the South Node as a place of decrease, diminishment, and release, especially with regard to that material, human 3D circumstance. And also, the South Node is a place of cultivated spiritual wisdom. It's a place of diminishment of the material, moving into the spiritual, the more ephemeral. There is a deep, old wisdom within the South Node. Well, this is a North Node eclipse, a calling in, a hunger, a sense of manifestation, a sense of augmentation and increase. We're starting to get our broad strokes of this eclipse, right? It is a new beginning, it's initiatory, it's a little bit karmic, fated, has a sense of volatility and acceleration. Now, let's look at the sign of Aquarius, where we are having this eclipse. Aquarius is a Saturn-ruled diurnal or masculine or yang sign. It is an air sign, and it is a fixed or solid sign. Air signs are communicative. They're cerebral. They are connective. We have Saturn involved here as the ruler of this sign. There is a sense of wisdom, of age, of rigidity. Aquarius is the middle part of the winter season here in the Northern Hemisphere. And so it has a quality of maintenance, of sustaining, of maintaining the energy of the season. It's right in the middle of the season. So we have this cerebral, communicative, connective, perhaps rigid sign with that fixity, a little bit dogmatic, a little bit inflexible or intolerant. If we think about Aquarius, its totem is the water bearer. It's one of the few totems throughout the zodiac that is a human, the human who is bearing the vessel from which it is pouring the waters of life into humanity. Aquarius becomes an incredibly humanitarian sign, an incredibly idealistic sign. And so that fixity, sometimes Aquarius in its idealistic, humanitarian, cerebral, conceptual abilities, there's a detached, cool, bird's eye view in Aquarius, able to see the big picture, able to see the entire beehive. There can be a bit of an idealism that leads towards intolerance for falling short of that ideal, an intolerance or a rigidity or a dogmatism around those ideals that is not very flexible. So we have this sign that is cerebral, conceptual, humanitarian, idealistic, a bird's eye view, forward thinking, detached emotionally, potentially rigid or dogmatic in its idealism, in its humanitarian thoughts and ideals. We've got a new moon here, which is seeding something. It is connected with the North Node, which is hungry, which is manifesting, which is calling in. And it is the first eclipse in this series on this axis of signs. And so that kind of doubles down on the newness, the seeding point, without even looking at the chart yet, right? Just taking all of this, we have a lot. We have a lot that we can feel into on an archetypal level. That's broad strokes for this eclipse. So now let's look at this chart specifically. As I said, this is coming through on the 17th of February. It is at 28 degrees in Aquarius. It's a North Node solar eclipse, which we've just talked about, and the closest aspect that this eclipse is making is a square to Uranus in Taurus at 27 degrees. Uranus is our planet of disruption, revolution, freedom, the unexpected, something sudden, shaking things up. It's all about instability with Uranus. So we've got a square, this new moon making a square to volatile Uranus in Taurus. We also have Mars co-present with the new moon, not conjunct by degree, but in the same sign as the new moon at 19 degrees of Aquarius. And we have the ruler of the eclipse, Saturn, the ruler of Aquarius, having just moved into the sign of Aries, literally 3-4 days before this eclipse on the 13th or 14th, depending on your time zone of February. Saturn moves into Aries, is very much actively conjunct the planet Neptune. Saturn and Neptune will officially conjoin just 3 days after this eclipse on February 20th, but that conjunction is very much in play in this eclipse chart at the first degree of Aries. So Saturn is in Aries. Aries is a Mars-ruled sign. Mars is in Aquarius, co-present with the new moon. So that is a mutual reception between Mars and Saturn. Saturn in Mars' sign. Mars is in Saturn's sign. They are able to talk to each other. They are both in diurnal signs. Aquarius is a masculine air sign, whereas Aries is a masculine or diurnal fire sign. Okay, we're getting an idea of what this eclipse looks like and feels like. We also have Jupiter in Cancer at the time of this eclipse. Cancer is a cardinal sign, so it is a sign of initiation. It's one of the hinge points. It marks the summer solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere. the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. It's one of the hinge points within the solar year. So it is a cardinal initiating sign. Why do I even bring up Jupiter? Because Jupiter and Saturn are at their first square within their 20-year long cycle. They are not square by degree, but they are square by sign, with Saturn in Aries, another cardinal sign, and Jupiter in Cancer. These two planets are said to be our two teacher planets. Saturn teaches through challenge and constriction and the nose through which we need to pivot and persevere. And Jupiter teaches through coherence, unification, and opportunity, right? They are at a hinge point or a turning point with their sign-based square that they are in right now. They will be in this sign-based square until Jupiter moves into Leo come late June, early July of 2026. So bringing this up because here's another element of something initiatory and something dynamic with that sign-based square between the ruler of the eclipse, Saturn in Aries, and Jupiter in Cancer, another cardinal signs. So these are the particulars of this chart. I would love to put all of these keywords together. We've got a North Node solar eclipse in the sign of Aquarius that is square Uranus, that is hosted by Saturn, newly in Aries, in mutual reception with its host Mars, that is co-present with the solar eclipse, right? We've even got the Neptune element in there that is adding a flavor of kind of spirituality, of confusion, perhaps of fervency in the sign of Aries. And then we've got our other teacher planet in a cardinal sign, Jupiter, in the cardinal sign of Cancer. Main themes that I'm getting with this eclipse: new seeding, initiation points that might be somewhat fated karmic turning points within our collective, within our society, within our personal lives. There might be an element of shock, surprise, something destabilizing. Eclipses are shadowing, the covering up of our lights, our luminaries, the sun or the moon. And so sometimes with eclipses, we have the sudden rising out of obscurity of certain figures, or the sudden obscuration of certain people. So there might be unexpected shifts in who our leaders are potentially. There's something idealistic, there's something humanitarian, there is something that feels very dynamic. It feels like a dynamic eclipse that is really a turning point. This feels like a turning point in our collective society. To me, these are some of the main ideas that I'm getting with this eclipse in particular. So let's dial it back a little bit. Let's take that walk down memory lane and let's look at some previous time periods when we had eclipses across the Leo and Aquarius axis. Now, I encourage you to go back and just jot down broad strokes of what comes up that was going on in your life during these periods of time, the events that was going on, the psychological framework that was prevalent during that time in your life, whatever first comes to memory for these periods of time, just jot them down. And then after the fact, you can look and see, were there any themes that seem to reprise themselves throughout these consecutive periods of time? Anything that feels like it's rhyming, anything that's like niggling in the back of your consciousness right now that feels like it's coming back round right around now. These are our dates, the previous dates when we had eclipses on the Aquarius and Leo axis. And also, as a reminder, we will be having eclipses on this axis through January 26, 2028. That is the final eclipse in this current series. Okay, so I'm going back to August 1989 through July of 1991. We had eclipses in Aquarius and Leo. That was the same orientation as it will be now, with the North Node in Aquarius and the South Node in Leo. The next one we had from August 1998 through July of 2000. The nodes at that time were reversed, the North Node in Leo, the South Node in Aquarius. February 2008 through August 2009, That was, again, North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo. And then the most recent time that we had eclipses in Aquarius and Leo was February of 2017 through January of 2019. And that was flipped. That orientation again was flipped from as it will be now, with the North Node in Leo and the South Node in Aquarius. To give you an idea, some example of broad strokes of the trip down memory lane, I'll just share very briefly what I thought of with each of these periods of time in my own life. The August of 89 through July of 91 period of time, I was fairly young. I was in 4th and 5th grade at that time. I don't have a lot of memories, except to say that that was the last 2 years, 4th and 5th grade, when I lived in my childhood home. And then we moved right before I went into middle school to a different house where I spent the remainder of my time at home living with my parents. So this was the last 2 years when I was in that real primary education, the house that I lived in. This is also, I had started dancing about a year prior to this. That was the beginning of lifelong love affair with dance. These 2 years was when I was really kind of starting to dive into dance as a passion, but I was quite young. Okay, so the next one, August of 1998 through July of 2000, these were my first 2 years of college. I went to college in September of 1998, and I moved away from my family and was leaving my community that I had grown up in and was starting to embark upon being an adult. I went to college. I was studying dance. I have my degree, my Bachelor of Fine Arts in dance, and so I was starting that program. I was developing a new community, developing who I was living on my own or with friends, roommates, for the first time away from my family of origin. Also during this period of time, I had a boyfriend, a relationship, my only serious relationship during college, with a person that was very different from what I would have considered my type. He was quite different from people I had been interested in my high school years and in the past. And though we broke up after the end of this eclipse series, just a couple months after, it was really one of my first real heartbreaks. The next one, from February of 2008 through August of 2009, okay, I was dancing a lot during this time. It was part of the time that I was contracted with a professional company. We were touring internationally. I met my husband, my now husband, during this period of time. And it was really the beginning. My first of my close friends got married during this time. And also my husband, I have to say, when I met him at first, I was like, I don't know if he's my type. He's not, there was something like that too. He's a different type of person from who I had been engaging with romantically. And then the most recent period of time, from February 2017 through January 2019, this was a period of time that I consider all about death and birth. 2017 in particular was a year of death for me, and I can get into the correlations, you might say, between what was going on astrologically with my own natal chart. But my last living grandparent died during this time. I had 2 miscarriages during this time. A very good friend of my husband's died unexpectedly and way too young. I had a friend's baby pass away through this kind of freak medical experience. So that was 2017, the first year of this series of eclipses along the Leo and Aquarius axis. But then 2018 encompasses my entire final pregnancy and the birth of my youngest child. So these are the broad strokes of my memory, my trip down memory lane, and looking at these periods of time when we had eclipses across the Leo and Aquarius axis. And let me know in the comments, did you find anything that was coming up? I'd love to hear. From what I can see from my quick memories, there is a lot about the transition periods between some things ending, some things beginning. There's some loss, there's some new birth, there's, old communities leaving, like when I went to college, and new communities building. The dance is a through line throughout, except for this more recent one, because by that time I had 2 children already, and I had stepped back significantly from the dance community. But those first ones, dance was a big part of that. So yeah, love to hear what you discover as you look back through these periods of time. As I said at the beginning of the show, in researching and looking at these periods of time, I had a little hunch. Okay, let's look at the chart of the Great American Eclipse, because I knew that that fell within this period of time. It was a Leo solar eclipse that took place in August 21st of 2017. And when I first pulled it up, I went, whoa, look at these similarities. Okay, so what do we see here? We have a new moon, solar eclipse, as this one in Aquarius will be. We have it near the North Node. This was a total eclipse that was visible across a large swath of the continental United States, which is why it's often referred to as the Great American Eclipse. So the new moon was in close degree-based conjunction with the North Node. So again, a North Node solar eclipse as this one will be coming up. And look at the degree, 28 degrees of Leo, the same exact degree across the sky in the opposing sign of this axis of Leo and Aquarius. What else do we have that's similar? Mars is co-present with the new moon at 20 degrees of Leo. Remember the eclipse that's upcoming, Mars is in Aquarius at 19 degrees, so almost at the same degree. Mars co-present with the eclipse. And what else do we have? What else do you see? What else do you see? Uranus, which in our upcoming eclipse is square almost to the degree. Well, here we have Uranus at 28 degrees of Aries. So this is not a square, but it's a trine, to the degree trine. So there is definitely a similarity here in the Uranian activation with Uranus in a degree-based trine to the new moon. What else do we see? Saturn is in a fire sign, as it is now for this eclipse, having just moved into Aries. In 2017, Saturn was in the other fire sign of Sagittarius. And do you see anything else? Jupiter, our other teacher planet, was in Libra, another cardinal sign, another hinge point of the year, the time of the equinox, a cardinal initiating seeding point, turning point within the year. So that right there, look at those similarities. It's the same degree, 180 degrees away across the zodiac in the opposing sign. We've got Mars co-present. It's a North Node solar eclipse. We've got Uranian activation, this time a trine from fire sign to fire sign. And we've got Saturn in another fire sign and Jupiter in a cardinal sign. Okay, so I was just like, whoa, what does this mean? Does this mean that, something that was coming up in 2017, August, September of 2017, are we going to see rhymes of that? Are we going to see thematic reprisals of something that was coming up that has that Uranian flavor of the unexpected, or something surprising or shocking, that has the very diurnal quality with Mars involved, the planet of action, will, and drive, with Saturn in a fire sign in both of these charts, fire being spirited, instinctual, expressive, outwardly moving, dynamic, right? We've got our other teacher planet, Jupiter, in another cardinal sign. What does this mean, right? I don't know. We'll find out. I am very curious to see, though, if there is something about this upcoming eclipse that's taking place February 17th, if there is something that is reminiscent or thematically or experientially similar to that eclipse that took place in August of 2017. Now, for me personally, Leo is my 6th house. Aquarius is my 12th house. This is not an easy axis. The 6th house is a place of misfortune, sometimes of health challenges, a place of effort and self-sacrifice and toil. It's the place of the challenges through which we need to persevere, hopefully in the pursuit of maintaining some sense of material stability. The 12th house is often seen as a place of loss, suffering, confinement or isolation. It's also a place of respite or retreat from the world. And so for me, August of 2017 was, I associate that eclipse in my 6th house of health misfortunes. And as I alluded to earlier, there was some other things going on in my personal astrology. But I associate that eclipse with my last of 3 miscarriages that I've had in total. So that's what I associate 2017. Now, look, I'm in my mid-40s. I have 3 children. I am not trying to have any more children. I am not thinking that the similarities in this eclipse chart to the upcoming eclipse chart means I'm going to have some miscarriage, right? Obviously, that's not, I'm in a different point in my life. But I'm wondering, looking back at these other periods of time, might there be something that feels like a loss, that feels like the transition period between something ending, and then maybe something being birthed and new beginning. With those couple of relationships that I mentioned, my college boyfriend and my now husband, where there was like, there's something different about this person than my norm. So is there going to be something to do with transitioning that's like outside of my comfort zone or outside of my normal preferences? I don't know. But I'm very curious to see how this is all going to play out over the next 6 weeks or month or 2. And please do let me know if there's something that's coming up that you're like, oh yeah, I remember that period of time, specifically August, September of 2017. If something comes up around this eclipse that doesn't thematically or experientially or actual event-wise feel similar to that period of time. Happy reminiscing. Thanks for taking this journey with me and listening to some messages from Mercury and listening to Hermes speak through memory, through image, through synchronicity. Mercury's in Pisces right now and will be going retrograde fairly soon. So we might have a lot of this memory coming up, and that we might be receiving our messages from Mercury less so from linear, logical written word or communications, and more so from dream, from image, from memory, from nostalgia. I hope that you got something out of this, that you found this interesting. I hope it encourages you to do some retro diction. And if you enjoyed it, please give me a like, subscribe, click the notification bell so that you know when all of my episodes come out every week, and leave those comments. I love to engage with you. If you have been wanting a reading with a professional astrologer, my books are open. Come and see me. It's my delight to be working in this industry. Truly, I say prayers of thanks every day to be an astrologer doing this work. You can go to emilytatomer.com if you would like to book a reading with me. Thank you for spending your time with me. I hope you have a wonderful eclipse, and I will see you next week.